The forest was not meant for humans. Dark, heavy trees rose like towers, their branches curling as if alive. Strange lights flickered between the leaves, not like fireflies, but like small floating eyes. The air was thick, almost breathing on, its own. Every sound, the crack of a branch, the hiss of unseen creatures, made the boy's heart beat faster. He was lost, far from the camp, far from safety. He was no older than 13. His boots sank into the soft alien soil, and his hands trembled as he tried to push through the vines. Somewhere behind him a growl echoed deep and sharp. He froze. Something was hunting him. The boy wanted to scream for his father, but his voice caught in his throat. His family's small ship had landed only hours ago. They came for trade, nothing more. But curiosity had led him here, away from the firelight, into a place where humans did not belong. Another growl. Closer this time. The boy ran. His legs carried him forward, though every step felt heavy. Branches scratched his face. The glowing eyes of the forest seemed to follow. And then he stumbled, falling hard into the dirt, pain shooting through his knees. The creature stepped into view. It was massive, 4 legs, covered in black fur that shimmered with blue streaks. Its mouth opened wide, revealing teeth longer than the boy's fingers. The boy scrambled back, tears filling his eyes. He pressed against the trunk of a tree. Nowhere left to run. The beast lowered itself, ready to leap. And then, a sharp whistling sound cut through the air. A stone, glowing, faintly with alien light, struck the beast on its side. It roared, turning its attention away. From the shadows she appeared. She was unlike anyone the boy had ever seen. Tall, thin, her skin a soft silver that reflected the forest light. Her eyes glowed pale blue, brighter than the stars above. Her hair, dark and long, flowed like water as she stepped closer. She carried no weapon but held another glowing stone in her hand. The beast growled, uncertain now. It backed away slowly, snarling before disappearing into the shadows. The boy sat frozen, unable to speak. She looked at him. For a moment, neither moved. The air between them felt strange, heavy with meaning. She tilted her head, studying his face as if trying to read his soul. "You should not be here," she finally said. Her voice was soft, almost like music, yet it carried strength. I was lost," the boy stammered. His chest rose and fell fast. "Thank you. You saved me." She stepped closer, and the boy could see the strange patterns across her arms, glowing faintly like stars drawn on her skin. She crouched down so her eyes met his. "You are human," she whispered, almost as if it was forbidden to say. "Yes." The boy nodded quickly. "My family, our ship, we came to trade." Her eyes narrowed, but not in anger, more in sorrow. Humans should not walk this forest. It listens, it remembers, it punishes. The boy did not fully understand her words, but he felt the warning in them. He nodded, wiping dirt from his face. "I didn't mean to. I was just curious." She studied him longer. Then, with a gentleness that surprised him, she offered her hand. Her fingers were long, her touch cool, but not cold. She pulled him up with ease as though he weighed nothing. They stood in silence for a moment. The boy felt strangely safe, though everything around him was dangerous. "What is your name?" he asked softly. Her expression changed, almost sad. "Names are not safe, not here." He frowned, confused, but before he could ask again, she leaned closer. "You must go back to your people. If they know I helped you, it will bring danger to me." The boy's heart tightened. "But I want to see you again." Her pale blue eyes held his gaze. For the first time, her lips curved into the smallest smile. "Perhaps you will, but not as a child." "What do you mean?" "You are not ready," she said, her voice low, steady. "When you are grown, when you are strong, you will return. Only then will our future begin." The boy's chest filled with something he had never felt before, hope mixed with fear. Our future? She nodded. Her hand brushed lightly against his arm, leaving behind a faint shimmer like starlight. Remember this night. Remember me. Promise me you will return. His throat tightened. He did not know why, but he felt that this moment mattered more than anything else in his life. Slowly he nodded. I promise. Her smile faded, replaced by urgency. She glanced into the shadows, as if sensing eyes watching them. Go. Now. Before the forest changes its mind. The boy hesitated, but her tone left no room for argument. He turned, stumbling back toward the direction of his camp. Each step away felt heavier, like he was leaving behind a piece of himself. Before the forest swallowed him, he looked back one last time. She was still there, standing tall, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Then, as silently as she had appeared, she melted back into the shadows, leaving only the memory of her promise behind. The boy did not sleep that night. Her words burned inside him, louder than the growls of the forest. When you are grown, when you are strong, our future will begin. From that day forward, he carried those words like a secret flame. And though he was still just a boy, he knew his life had changed forever. 10 years had passed since that night in the alien forest. The boy was no longer a boy. He had become a man. His shoulders were broad, his voice deep, his eyes hardened by years of work, training, and survival. Yet, inside him, one thing never changed: the memory of her. The silver-skinned girl with glowing eyes who had saved his life, and the promise she had whispered. When you are grown, when you are strong, you will return. Her words had followed him everywhere. In his dreams, in his waking hours, even in the silence of long journeys. Through the void of space, her voice echoed. Other men chased wealth, glory, or freedom, but he carried something heavier, a promise. Now at last he was ready to fulfill it. The ship was small but strong, built for long travel. Its engines hummed steadily as it cut through the stars. He sat in the pilot's seat, his hand steady on the controls, his eyes fixed on the endless stretch of darkness ahead. The starlight reflected faintly in his eyes, just as her glow had reflected years ago. On the console, an old piece of cloth was tied. Faded, worn, but important. It was the blanket from his childhood, the one he had wrapped around himself that night in the forest. The same one that had nearly been torn apart by the beast. He kept it as a reminder not of fear but of survival. Of her. He whispered to the empty ship, I am coming back. This time, I am not a boy. When he reached the star system, his heart pounded. The planet was the same one he remembered, green from orbit, covered in forests and rivers, clouds wrapping around it like a protective veil. But something was wrong. From above he could see scars across the land. Fires that had long burned out left blackened fields. Strange metal towers rose like claws, sharp and cold, out of the ground. And in orbit, several large ships floated, their design harsh and cruel. This was not the peaceful world of his memory. He landed in a quiet valley far from the towers. The forest greeted him with the same heavy silence as before, but it felt different now. The trees were older, darker, and their roots twisted like chains across the ground. The forest no longer looked alive. It looked wounded. He stepped out, his boots crunching against dry soil. His hand rested on the blaster at his side, but his heart ached more than it feared. What happened here? He whispered. He walked, for hours, moving carefully, avoiding patrols of strange alien soldiers that marched along broken roads. They carried weapons and wore armor with the mark of an empire he had only heard about in whispers. The Empire of Scour, a brutal force that enslaved weaker worlds. His chest tightened. Was she still here? Had she survived this? At last he found a small village hidden near the edge of the forest. The houses were broken, their walls cracked, but smoke rose from a few chimneys. Life still clung here. He stepped inside carefully, but the villagers froze when they saw him. Their silver skin, their glowing eyes, it was her people. But their eyes no longer shone bright. They looked dim, weary, crushed under fear. One of them, an old man with trembling hands, stepped forward. "Human," he said slowly, his voice weak. "Why do you come here? Do you not know? Your kind brings danger with every step." The man shook his head. "I came for her. A girl, silver skin, blue eyes. 10 years ago. She saved me in the forest. She made me promise I would return." The villagers exchanged looks, fearful, sad, but not surprised. The old man's eyes softened, but he lowered his voice. "If you are speaking of her, then you should know the truth. She is no longer free. The Empire has taken her." The man's fists clenched, his stomach dropped, but his resolve only hardened. "Where is she?" The old man hesitated, then pointed toward the horizon. A massive black tower rose in the distance, stabbing the sky like a spear. "She is kept there, bound to the will of the enemy's leader. They call her a symbol. But to us, she is hope. If she rises, we rise. If she falls, we all fall." The old man's heart pounded in his chest. She was alive. She was suffering. And she was waiting for him to return, just as she had promised. That night, he sat by the dim fire in the village. The flames flickered against his face, and his hand rested on the faded cloth tied around his wrist. He remembered her smile, the way she had touched his arm, the way she had said, "When you are grown." Now he was grown. Now he was strong. But strength alone would not be enough. He would need courage, cunning, and allies. As he sat there, he felt eyes watching him. From the edge of the firelight, a cloaked figure stepped forward. The villagers whispered nervously, bowing their heads. The figure pulled back her hood. His breath caught. It was her. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the firelight, her eyes still blue but darker now, filled with shadows of pain and years of silence. She was older, but there was no mistake. It was the same girl who had once saved him. "You returned," she whispered, her voice breaking. He stood, unable to speak at first. His heart roared louder than any words. Finally, he said, "I promised." For the first time in years, her lips curved into the smallest smile, but behind that smile was sorrow. "Then you must understand. To save me, you must fight an empire." The fire cracked between them, casting sparks into the night, and the promise that had once been whispered in the forest now became a call to war. The morning after their reunion was heavy with silence. The man woke in the small village, surrounded by people who moved like shadows. Their faces showed little hope, their voices were soft, their eyes dim. It was a world broken, and he could feel the weight of that brokenness in every breath of air. He followed her, the girl who was no longer a girl, through the narrow streets. She walked with her head covered by a hood, hiding her glow, hiding herself. Every villager who saw her bowed their head quickly, out of respect or fear. It was hard to tell which. "This was once a land of light," she said quietly, not looking at him. "Our rivers shone blue under twin suns. Our forests sang with life. Now." She lifted her hand. The man looked around. The forest that had once frightened him as a child now seemed wounded. Many of the trees were dead, their roots cracked and dry. The rivers that cut across the valley no longer glowed but carried mud and ash. The songs of birds had been replaced by the sound of machines in the distance. "They have taken everything," she whispered. "Our sky, our soil, our freedom." As they walked further, the man saw it clearly. The Empire's grip. Black towers rose in the distance, stabbing into the horizon like cruel spears. Roads once soft with earth were now filled with heavy alien tanks. Soldiers in dark armor patrolled with strange weapons, their faces hidden behind masks of glass. The villagers moved around them with fear in every step. No one dared to meet a soldier's eyes. No one dared to speak louder than a whisper. The man clenched his fists. His human heart burned with anger. "Why do your people not fight?" She stopped. Slowly she turned toward him. Her eyes, still glowing faintly blue, carried years of pain. They did fight. Many times. The Empire crushed them each time. For every soldier they killed, 10 of ours were taken and punished. For every act of rebellion, they burned a city. Her voice lowered, breaking slightly. Hope has a cost. Too many have paid it. The man felt his throat tighten. He remembered her words from long ago. When you are grown, when you are strong, you will return. Now he understood why she had said it. She hadn't needed a boy. She had needed a man. One who would not run. One who could carry the weight of war. Later that day, they climbed a high ridge overlooking the ruined capital. What he saw below made his chest ache. The city was no longer theirs. Great metal walls surrounded it, with watchtowers at every corner. Slave markets filled the square where once, she said, her people had celebrated festivals of light. Giant banners of the Empire hung across buildings, their symbols sharp and cruel. The sound of chains echoed through the streets as silver-skinned people, her people, were forced to labor under the Empire's soldiers, and at the very center, rising above all else, was the Black Tower. "That is where they keep me," she said quietly. He turned sharply toward her. "Keep you? But you're here, free." She shook her head. "Not free. The leader of the Empire. He calls me the voice of this world. I am forced to appear when he demands it, to speak words that are not mine. If I resist, he takes it out on my people. Every time I stand against him, another village burns." The man's jaw tightened. He could almost see the chains around her, invisible but cruel. "You should have told me," he said. She looked at him, sadness filling her eyes. "Would it have mattered? You would still have come. You promised." Her words cut deep. She was right. He would have come no matter what, because the fire of her promise had never left his heart. That night they returned to the village. Around a dim fire a few rebels gathered. Their faces were marked with scars and their eyes burned with quiet anger. They had been waiting, for years, for someone to stand with them. One rebel, a tall warrior with half his arm replaced by a crude mechanical limb, spoke first. "You are human. Why risk your life for us?" The man looked at the fire, then at her. His voice was steady. "Because she saved me once when I was a boy. She gave me a chance to live. Now I am here to give her and all of you a chance to be free." The warrior studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "If you mean this, then you must be ready. The Empire does not fall with words. It falls with blood." The man did not look away. "Then I will give mine if I must." Later, when the fire had burned low, he found her standing alone, staring at the stars. "This world has fallen," she said softly. "But it can rise again. Do you believe that, human?" Stepped closer, his voice firm. "I do, because you believe it, and because I promised you a future. That future begins now." Her eyes shone brighter for a moment, the way they had in the forest all those years ago. She touched the cloth tied to his wrist, the old, faded reminder of his childhood. "You kept it," she whispered. "I kept everything," he replied. And in that quiet moment, beneath a sky torn by war, two souls stood together, one human, one alien, bound by a promise that had survived time, distance, and destruction. But deep inside, both of them knew the hardest part had not yet begun. The nights on her world were darker now. Once, she told him, 2 moons had shone bright over the forests, bathing the land in silver light. But one moon had been shattered by the Empire's weapons long ago. Its broken pieces still circled the planet like scars across the sky. Now only one pale moon remained, its glow weak against the endless black. The man and the alien girl moved through that darkness like shadows. Every step had to be careful, every sound measured. The Empire's soldiers patrolled the roads day and night, their armor glowing faintly with red lights, their weapons always ready. They did not travel alone. With them moved a handful of rebels, men and women who had lost families, homes, and freedom. Their eyes carried pain but also fire. They trusted the alien girl, for she was their secret leader, hidden in caves, forgotten tunnels, and ruined temples. These rebels built their hope in silence. The man sat in one of those caves now, watching as they gathered around flickering lamps. Maps of the capital were spread on stone tables. Markings of guard posts, supply routes, and weak points had been drawn in chalk. The warrior with the mechanical arm pointed at the black tower in the city's center. This is where they keep her bound. If we strike, it must be here, but we do not have the numbers. The man leaned forward. Numbers aren't everything. Surprise, speed, and courage matter more. The rebels looked at him carefully. He was human, an outsider. Some still did not trust him. But when their eyes moved to her, the alien girl, their doubt softened. She spoke calmly, her voice carrying authority. He is right. We do not need to crush the Empire in one night. We need to break its chains. If the tower falls, the people will rise. Her words lit sparks in the eyes around her. They listened because she had suffered with them. She had stood on the Empire's stage, forced to speak lies, yet every villager knew she spoke truth in her silence. She was their hidden fire. Later, when the others had left, the man approached her. She stood near the cave wall, tracing the cracks with her fingers. The dim glow of her skin lit the stones faintly. "You lead them," he said softly. She shook, her head. "I do not lead, I remind. They follow the memory of what we once were." He studied her. "And yet, they move when you speak. That is leadership." Her eyes lowered. "Leadership is a curse. Every choice I make costs lives. Every word I speak may bring pain to others. You cannot imagine how heavy that feels." He stepped closer, his voice steady. "Then let me carry some of it with you." She looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes he saw conflict, hope struggling against fear. At last she whispered, "You should not have returned." He almost laughed, though there was no humor in it. "You asked me to." Her lips pressed into a faint smile. "I know, and now I fear I have brought you into a cage that has no door." The following days were filled with training in the shadows. The man taught the rebels how to fight with human weapons, quick strikes, traps, and guerrilla tactics. They were fast learners, desperate and determined. One night, while practicing, a young rebel asked him, "Why risk so much for us, human? Your world is free." The man paused, then glanced at her. "Because freedom is not real if others are still chained. And because I promised her." The young rebel nodded slowly, understanding. But even in the shadows, danger grew. One evening, while scouting near the city, they barely escaped an ambush. Empire soldiers swarmed the alleys, their red lights cutting through the night. Blaster, fire scorched the walls. The man pulled her into a hidden tunnel just as a patrol passed above. Pressed against the stone, his breath hot, hers steady, they stayed still. The sound of soldiers faded slowly. In that tight space, silence weighed heavy. Finally, she whispered, "Every time I see you fight, I remember the boy you once were. Small, afraid, hiding from the beast in the forest. And yet you ran into danger, again for me." His chest tightened. "That night changed me, you changed me." Her hand brushed against his arm where the old cloth still tied around his wrist. For a brief moment her eyes softened, her voice lower than a whisper. "If we survive this, perhaps the future I promised can still exist." But before he could answer, a noise echoed from above. The Empire's machines moving closer. Their moment ended, They slipped deeper into the tunnels, swallowed again by the shadows. That night back in the cave, she revealed a secret to him. A secret even most rebels did not know. She led him to a chamber hidden deep underground. Carvings covered the walls, ancient symbols of her people, glowing faintly in the dark. At the center stood a crystal, pulsing with a soft blue light. "This," she said, her hand hovering near the crystal, "is the heart of my people. It holds our history, our strength. The Empire has not yet found it. If they do, we lose everything." The man stared at the crystal, feeling its hum through his bones. "Then we must protect it," she nodded slowly. "No, we must use it. When the time comes, this crystal can awaken every voice of my people. It can call them to rise." Her eyes turned to him, serious and full of weight. "But to awaken it, a sacrifice must be made." The man's chest grew tight. "What kind of sacrifice?" Her silence was answer enough. As they stood in that chamber, shadows all around, he realized the promise he carried might demand more than he had ever imagined. Not just his strength, not just his blood, perhaps even the life of the one who had given him hope. And in that hidden place, surrounded by ancient light, he swore silently to himself, "No matter the cost, I will not let her fall." The cave was colder that night. Not because of the air, but because of the silence that had settled after her revelation. The rebels sat around the stone table, their faces half lit by weak lamps. Each carried scars on their skin, on their hearts, but each still carried the fire of survival. The man stood beside the alien girl, his hand resting on the old cloth at his wrist. He looked at the rebels and then at the black lines drawn on the map of the city. His voice was steady. "It's time. We've hidden long enough. The tower must fall." The room erupted in whispers. Some nodded fiercely, others looked away in fear. The warrior with the mechanical arm slammed his fist onto the table. "You speak like it is easy, human. That tower is a fortress. Hundreds guard it. Thousands watch it. We rush in. We die." The man did not flinch. "Then we don't rush. We plan. We strike where they don't expect it." The alien girl placed her hand gently on the table. The rebels fell silent. Her eyes glowed faintly, her voice soft but unshakable. "He is right. The tower is their heart, and hearts can bleed." The planning began. The rebels leaned in as he spread small stones across the map, marking patrol routes. Their soldiers change shifts every 6 hours. The tower's north gate is thick with guards, but the east side, smaller patrols. If we strike there under cover of night, we can break inside. The mechanical arm warrior frowned. "And what then?" "We reach the tower, fine. But inside? Do you know its halls, its machines, its traps?" The girl spoke. "I do. I have walked those halls. I have stood on their stages. I know where they keep the prisoners, where the leader sits, where the chains of power hold strongest." The rebels looked at her with awe. She had suffered in that place, but now her suffering became their guide. The man's voice grew sharper. "Once we are in, we find her." He paused, then corrected himself. "We find their leader. Without him, the empire here will break." The girl's lips pressed tight. "Do not underestimate him. He is not only strong, he is cunning, cruel. He will not fight with honor. He will use fear, lies, and chains." The man met her eyes, steady. "Then I'll break his chains." Days passed in preparation. Weapons were sharpened. Hidden tunnels were mapped. Signals were agreed upon. Every detail had to be perfect. The man trained with the rebels tirelessly. He taught them quick strikes, ambush tactics, how to move silent and fast. In return, they taught him their ways, how to move through the alien forest without leaving a trace, how to use the glowing stones as weapons and signals. The girl watched quietly most of the time, but every now and then she stepped in, showing them a hidden path or correcting their stance with a calm hand. One evening, when the others had gone to rest, she found him alone, sitting near the edge of the cave, staring at the faded cloth on his wrist. You should not wear that into battle, she said softly. It is fragile, it will not protect you. He smiled faintly. It already has. It reminds me why I fight. Her eyes softened. She sat beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Finally, she whispered, "Do you know why I made you promise all those years ago?" He shook his head slowly. "Because I saw something in you," she said. "Not just fear, not just courage, something more. A will that does not break. My people had already begun to fall, but in you, a child far from home, I saw a spark. I thought maybe one day that spark could become fire." He turned to her, his voice low. "And now?" Her eyes glistened faintly. "Now I see the fire, but fire can burn the world or save it. I fear what it may cost." He reached out, gently taking her hand. "No matter the cost, I won't let you be the sacrifice." She did not pull away, but she did not answer. Night before the mission, the rebels gathered one final time. Their faces were painted with ash to hide their glow, their weapons strapped tight. The mechanical arm warrior spoke gruffly. "Once we go, there is no turning back. The Empire will. No, we rise. Win or lose, everything changes tonight." The man nodded. "Then let it change." The girl stepped forward. She looked at each rebel in turn, her voice clear, her glow brighter than it had been in years. "We fight not for revenge. We fight for our children, for our rivers, for the songs of our forests. We fight for the light we lost. Tonight we fight to bring it back." The rebels bowed their heads. For the first time in years, hope flickered in their eyes. As they prepared to leave, the man pulled the girl aside. "If anything happens to me," she silenced him with a sharp shake of her head. "Do not speak like that." "But if it does," he pressed, his voice firm, "you must lead them. Promise me you will keep fighting." Her jaw tightened. "I cannot promise that. Because without you, I fear I would lose myself." The word struck him deeper than any blade. For a moment, all the noise of the cave faded, and only her voice remained. He wanted to tell her everything he had carried for years, the way her memory had burned in him, the way her promise had shaped his life. But the time was gone. The rebels were already moving, slipping into the night. He only managed to whisper, "Then stay close. No matter what happens, stay close." She nodded once, her eyes glowing with quiet fire. And so, in the silence of the broken night, a small band of rebels, a human who carried a promise and a girl bound by chains unseen, stepped out of the shadows and began the journey toward the Black Tower. The rescue plan had begun, but none of them knew how much blood it would demand before the dawn. The night sky was heavy with smoke. In the distance, the Black Tower stood like a blade against the stars, its walls glowing faintly with crimson lights. Every villager who saw it felt despair, but tonight, hidden in the shadows, a band of rebels carried something stronger than fear. The man walked at the front, the old cloth tied at his wrist, his blaster ready. Beside him, the alien girl moved silently, her eyes glowing faintly under the hood. Behind them, the rebels followed, faces painted with ash, hearts beating with both terror and fire. The forest seemed to hold its breath as they reached the edge of the city. They moved through broken alleys, past ruined homes, and under the watch of enemy patrols. The city that once sang with laughter was now silent, its streets lined with banners of the Empire. Strange machines floated above, scanning for movement, their red beams cutting through the dark. The rebels avoided them, slipping through shadows. Every step was a gamble. Every heartbeat could be their last. Finally, they reached the east wall of the tower, the weak point the man had studied for days. A small drainage tunnel, half buried, led under the foundation. "This is it," he whispered. The mechanical arm warrior crawled forward first, his weapon strapped to his back. One by one, the rebels followed, their bodies pressing through the narrow tunnel. The man entered last, helping her through, their shoulders brushing in the dark. When they emerged inside, they were already within the beast's belly. The halls of the tower were cold and metallic, glowing with faint red veins of energy that pulsed through the walls. The air smelled of oil and blood. Their footsteps echoed too loud, every sound like thunder in the silence. She led them, for she knew these halls. Her voice was a whisper. This way. The prisoner cells are below. The leader's throne is above. They moved carefully, but it did not take long for alarms to sound. A shrill scream of metal echoed through the tower. Red lights flared to life. The rebels froze for half a breath. Then came the sound. Boots, hundreds of them, marching fast. They know we're here. The man growled. Then we fight, she said, her voice sharp. The first wave of soldiers appeared at the far end of the hall, their weapons glowing red. Blaster fire lit the corridor. The man dived behind a pillar, returning fire with sharp precision. Rebels launched glowing stones which burst into flashes of light that blinded soldiers before striking them down. The warrior with the mechanical arm swung his blade, sparks flying as it clashed against armored foes. The tower shook with battle. Through the chaos, the man caught sight of her. She stood in the middle of the storm, her eyes glowing brighter than he had ever seen, her voice rising in a sharp cry that echoed like a command. For a moment her people seemed to remember. They were not slaves but warriors. One by one the soldiers fell, but more came, waves upon waves, until the halls became rivers of fire. We can't hold them here, a rebel shouted. Then we don't, the man replied. We move up, straight to the heart. They pushed through the tower, fighting floor by floor. The rebels left trails of fire and smoke behind them. Doors blasted open, chains broken, prisoners freed. With each prisoner released, the rebellion grew. The man moved like a storm, his blaster burning, his fists striking, his body refusing to fall. But even as he fought, he never let her out of his sight. She was the reason he had returned, the promise that drove him forward. At last, they reached the grand hall at the tower's center. Its doors were massive, carved with cruel symbols of the empire. The girl's voice lowered. He waits inside. The man's grip tightened on his weapon. Then let's end this. The doors burst open. Inside, the hall stretched like a cathedral, lit with red fire. At its far end sat the leader of the empire, a towering figure clad in black armor, his face hidden behind a mask of steel. His eyes glowed red through the visor, burning like twin suns of hatred. Chains hung from the walls, heavy and cruel. Broken banners of her people lay beneath his throne, trampled under his boots. The rebels froze, the air itself heavy with his presence. So, the leader's voice boomed, deep and sharp. The girl returns, and with her, a human pet. The man stepped forward, blaster raised. I am no one's pet. I am the man who will end you. The leader laughed, the sound like thunder. End me? Child, you have no idea what you face. With a wave of his hand, the chains along the wall sprang to life, moving like serpents. The rebels cried out as the chains lashed at them, wrapping around arms, throats, pulling them down. The man fought to cut through them, his blaster burning the links, but they were endless. Beside him, the girl raised her hands. Her body glowed, with blue light brighter and brighter until the chains froze in midair. The leader's mask tilted. Ah, the voice of this world finally dares to sing. Her eyes blazed as she shouted back. Not your voice, mine! The chains shattered, bursting into sparks. The hall erupted in chaos. The rebels charged. The man stormed forward, his blaster aimed at the leader. The leader rose from his throne, drawing a massive blade of dark energy. Their clash shook the tower. Steel met fire. Blue light met red. The final battle had begun. The hall shook with every strike. The man's blaster fired again and again, but the leader of the empire deflected each shot with his dark blade. Sparks filled the air. Chains whipped across the hall like serpents trying to trap the rebels again. Screams, fire, and light clashed together. The man pressed forward, sweat and blood streaking his face. His every move carried the weight of the promise he had made long ago. The girl stood at his side, her body glowing brighter than ever before. Her voice rose above the chaos, echoing against the walls, a cry of defiance that was more than sound. It was power. The chains trembled under her voice, shattering with every note. Her people, watching from the edges, lifted their heads. For the first time in years, they heard her true voice, and in that moment, hope began to burn again. The leader roared, his blade striking against the man's chest. The force sent him crashing into the stone floor. Pain shot through his ribs. His blaster skittered away across the ground. The leader raised his blade for the final strike. This is the end, human. But before the blade fell, the girl stepped between them. Her glowing hands caught the weapon, sparks exploding around her. The hall filled with a blinding blue light. Her voice thundered, "No more chains!" The energy shattered the leader's blade, breaking it into shards of red fire. The man staggered to his feet, eyes wide. "How?" She glanced back at him, her face pale but her eyes blazing. "The crystal. It gives me strength, but it will not last." The leader laughed, even as his weapon fell apart. "Foolish child. You think light alone can save you?" He stretched his arms and the walls of the hall seemed to groan. The entire tower shook. Metal beams bent. Stones cracked. The rebels stumbled as the floor split beneath them. The man rushed forward, fists clenched. He struck the leader with everything he had. Years of training, years of anger, years of promise. The impact sent both of them crashing into the throne. The hall roared with battle cries. Rebels fought soldiers, chains snapped, fire burned. But, in the chaos, the girl saw something. The crystal's energy inside her pulsing too strong, too fast. Her body trembled. She knew what it meant. The crystal demanded sacrifice. She looked at him. He was still fighting, refusing to fall. Blood ran down his face, his hands raw, yet his eyes burned with fire. The boy she had saved was gone. Before her stood a man who carried not just her promise, but the future of her world. Tears glistened in her glowing eyes. She stepped toward him, her voice breaking through the noise. "Do you remember what I told you in the forest?" He turned, gasping, barely holding himself up. "You said, when I was grown, when I was strong." Her lips curved into a sad, beautiful smile. "That our future would begin." His chest tightened. "Yes, and it will. Together." But she shook her head softly. "The crystal's power will not hold without a price. That price must be me." "No." His voice cracked like thunder. "You can't. I didn't come all this way just to lose you." Her glowing hand touched his face, leaving warmth against his bruised skin. "You didn't lose me. You found me. And now you will carry me into the future." Before he could stop her, she stepped forward, raising both hands. Her body glowed brighter, brighter still, until she became a storm of light. The crystal's energy poured from her into the tower. The walls cracked, chains shattered, banners of the empire burned away in fire. The rebels fell to their knees, covering their eyes from the brilliance. The leader screamed, trying to fight against the light, but it consumed him, breaking his armor, burning his body into nothing. The tower groaned, split, and collapsed under the force. The man reached for her, shouting her name, but the light swallowed her. When it faded, she was gone. Only the crystal remained, dim and cracked, lying where she had stood. The hall was silent. The battle was over. The rebels, slowly rising, looked around in disbelief. The Empire's soldiers were dead or fled. The chains were broken. The man stood in the ruins, his chest heaving, his eyes fixed on the cracked crystal. His hands trembled as he picked it. Up for a moment, he thought he heard her voice, soft, distant, like wind through leaves. "Our future begins." Tears blurred his vision. He tied the crystal to the faded cloth on his wrist, carrying both her memory and her sacrifice. Days later, the world began to heal. The people rose, free again. The rebels became leaders, guiding villages back to life. Forests slowly grew. Rivers, cleared songs returned, but the man did not stay. He could not. The weight of the promise kept him moving. He had given them freedom, but his heart remained bound to her. He walked to the edge of the forest where they had first met. The same trees stood tall, the same shadows whispered. He closed his eyes, remembering her silver skin, her glowing eyes, her voice in the night. "You saved me once," he whispered, "then again tonight. And though you are gone, I will keep your promise alive." And so the boy who had once been lost in a dark forest became the man who carried a world's hope. His story spread among her people, whispered like legend. They called it the promise of light, and though she was gone, every night when the stars shone above, he looked up and believed she was still there, watching, guiding, waiting. The future she had promised was no longer a dream. It had begun.